Hello, everyone. We are on Native Pulse, which is a production of the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. The purpose of the Native Pulse conversation series is to bring forth the heart, knowledge, and action of Indigenous communities to the people. Our series will feature a variety of leaders and traditional peoples speaking on environmental justice, sustainable communities, and urgent issues as they relate to the health of our homelands. It's our intent that you leave these conversations feeling uplifted and inspired into action by the many movements across the Indigenous world. To introduce myself, ang pangalan ko ay Chelsey Trillo. My name is Chelsey. I work at the 7th Generation Fund as a program coordinator. Today I will be co-facilitating with Raven Marshall, who is our creative associate. We are thrilled and honored to be joined today by Chelsey, Luger, and Thosh Collins from Well for Culture. These incredible partners, parents, and inspirations are actively re-indigenizing through reclaiming Indigenous lifeways around health and wellness. And so Chelsey and Thosh, would you mind introducing yourselves and telling our listeners a little bit more about your grassroots project and movement?
Sure. Hamadakiapi, hello relatives. My name is Chelsey, and I'm originally from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa and from the Standing Rock and Cheyenne River Sioux tribes up in the Northern Plains. So that's where I was born and raised, but I have been here in O'odham territory for the past 5 years or so, while my husband Thosh and I have continued to grow our initiative, which is called Well for Culture. And what that is an Indigenous Wellness Initiative where we promote holistic health and healing and active lifestyles and ancestral foods and all that good stuff that has been a very important part of Indigenous communities since time immemorial, and we are reclaiming some of those practices and hopefully encouraging others to do so. And here with us is our daughter, Aloe, and she is 2 years old and is always by our side.
Mm-hmm. And my name is Thosh. I'm from the Salt River people, the Akimel O'odham, right here in Arizona, where we live, right in Phoenix, where our reservation is just down the street. We're bordered up with the city. Also, Haudenosaunee and Wajaji from Oklahoma, my maternal side, and one of the board members of the Native Wellness Institute, and yes, one of the co-founders of Well for Culture, our Indigenous Wellness Initiative. And I'm happy to be conversating with you all this afternoon, and hopefully those that are watching will get something out of this, and something will maybe shift in their mind, and they may be inspired when they walk away from this conversation.
Thank you for that introduction. Hamatakiapi, Hachante Washten Lapechiuzapi, Raven Marshall, Imachiapi. Again, my name is Raven Marshall, and I'm excited to be here with you all today. So I think we're gonna get started with some questions. So we know that you both do a lot of work, not just uplifting physical fitness, but holistic wellness. Can you explain the connection between physical health and how that ties into spiritual and emotional and mental health?
Go ahead, Thosh.
Yeah, and that's a model, right, that a lot of our different Indigenous nations have followed and understood that as human beings, we're made up of these 4 states of spiritual. Some say that hovers above us, our physical body, our mental, our mind, and our emotions, our heart, and all these things are interconnected and influence one another, right? And as we know today, kind of in dominant culture, like a lot of times when they talk about wellness, they're really focused on maybe mental well-being or physical well-being, movement and eating, which those are very, very important components for sure. And the thing that we've learned, and that many of our ancestors have understood too, that one influences the other, right? When we're doing practices that are going to enhance our physical self, we're also helping with our emotional well-being. We're also helping with our mental well-being. Our physical body carries our spirit, right? It carries the mind, carries our clarity and It holds our heart. And so when we're doing things, when we're looking at movement, when we're consciously engaging in physical movement, we are, what I always say, giving thanks for our body. Like we're being able, we're utilizing what we were given. And we hear that a lot growing up in our communities, right? They say dance for those that cannot dance, or fight for those that cannot fight. In physical movement, the way I think about it today is that when we actually consciously physically move for the purpose of staying well and fighting a lot of the diseases of modernity, it's a really powerful thing. And what the science tells us is that when we move, that the body releases different types of neurotransmitters, dopamine, norepinephrine, and things like that, noradrenaline, and these things help to reduce cortisol, the hormone that becomes increased when we're experiencing a lot of stress, right? So physiologically, when we move, there's a lot of benefit to that. And it helps with mental clarity, it helps with memory, it helps with cognition and foresight. And of course with our emotions too. And that's one of the reasons why I exercise too. It's a huge release when we put our body through a little bit of physical stress, when we sweat a little, when all the endorphins start to run, we help to really release. And so I think that it's a really good modality in anyone's healing journey, is to find some movement practice that works for you. You know, it's different for everyone, right? Running, everything from taking a swift hike, swimming, doing resistance training with weights, yoga, dancing, even working in the field or the garden, getting out and you know, canoeing and things like that. There's so many different ways to practice a physical movement. And because we know our ancestors moved all the time, and our ancestors were very athletic people. We've had amazing games. And for instance, out there, the game sticks that's played in your guys' area and the region there is a great game that exhibits the athleticism that our ancestors had embodied. And so we always had that in our culture, that our people were excellent athletes and amazing movers, and their survival have depended upon it. And as we know today, our world has changed, and so we no longer have to move in this sense for our survival, but we do in a sense that we have all the diseases of modernity that we're battling. So we have to make movement, like actual conscious objective movement, has to be a part of our culture. And it has to be like, today I need to exercise because we are at risk of diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, we're at risk of cancer, neurodegenerative diseases. And now with the pandemic and COVID-19 being also a factor, we have to also understand too that when we exercise, as well as other modalities of wellness, we enhance our immune system. And so we have to consider all these things today. And that's why physical movement has to be a big part of our culture and our day, again, in order for us to heal, to maintain wellness, so we can pass on a good, healthy lifestyle to the young generation. So it's making healthy the culture again. It's making that the norm once again. So that's a little bit about my understanding of the physical wellness and connection to the mental and emotional and spiritual well-being.
And just to piggyback off of that, something that we always point out is that you know, if a person, an Indigenous person today, is having a little bit of trouble connecting to a movement practice or a fitness, you know, modality of fitness, think of our ancestors and our ceremonies that are continued today. Think of the fact that every single one of these ceremonies involves movement or perhaps a sacrifice of fasting of some kind. Right, baby. So our ancestors had recognized that connection between physically exerting ourselves and our spirituality. When we prayed together, we also at the same time would move together. And we still do today in our ceremonies, whether it's a Sundance or, you know, any number of other ceremonies. When you just look to the diversity of Indigenous culture, there is that worldwide recognition of the connection between moving and spirit.
Thank you both for that, for explaining that for us and our listeners. You had mentioned before, you know, you hope that what you demonstrate and what you uplift and teach encourages other communities to also revitalize their own ways. Can you share a story or two where you've engaged with a community that you've been invited to that later expressed a ripple effect or positive impact regarding the holistic health of their individuals and community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that question. And I'd just like to start by saying that, yes, it is a huge part of our job to travel. We go all over Native country and First Nations in Canada and tribes in the US. And it's just an absolute honor every single time that we are invited to speak about wellness in these different communities. And the first thing that we think to ourselves when we travel somewhere is we know that we are not the experts. We're not bringing some all-knowing solutions to different tribes, especially if they're not specifically the tribes where we come from. We really respect the elders, the leaders, the change makers, the youth, everybody who is already in that community doing wellness work. And so we don't come with that mentality of like, we're bringing all the answers. We come with the mentality of just simply kind of assisting in that, connecting the dots between things that the community already knows and things that the community can just continue to bolster. So I think with that mentality, and the fact that we understand the importance of being humble because we are Indigenous people who are raised within our own communities has been welcomed and has been warmly welcomed by many different places because prior to this kind of new era of wellness where you do see a lot of Indigenous leadership, I think there was, and you still see it quite a bit, is kind of outside experts coming in and trying to fix everyone and kind of seeing us first for our problems, not for our strengths. And so we just try to flip that on its head and make sure that we are respectful and recognizing all of the powerful wellness that already exists within those communities. So with that being said, that's our approach. And fortunately, we've I think what speaks to folks' response to us is that we've been invited back almost everywhere we've gone. And we have just built not just connections, but really strong friendships and relationships with so many people across Native country at this point. And, it's just been the honor of our lives. And in terms of like specific examples of people who say that their lives have been changed after attending one of our workshops or listening to our podcast or something, social media has been a great tool for us being able to follow up with people. And, one example that comes to the top of my head is just recently we did a podcast about healthy relationships, and we tied, ancestral teachings and stuff like that into, because healthy relationships are very much a part of our holistic wellness. And man, we got many messages from different people saying that that episode gave them the strength to reevaluate how they were being treated in their relationships. It gave them the strength in certain cases to even move on from unhealthy relationships that they had been in. Or for some people, it just made them feel solidarity with us, some Indigenous people who already do have, fortunately have healthy relationships. And I think people just appreciated it. So, man, I mean, when we hear stuff like that it just totally touches our heart. And I mean, there's nothing more that we could ask for in the work that we do to have impacted somebody in a positive way. So I don't know, Thosh, if you have other examples.
There's just so many little stories everywhere. And with the training that we do, and we have a wellness model that we do training, and that's kind of the bulk of our work revolves around training and 7 circles of wellness. And we teach it in a way where individuals, families, and communities can adopt it in their own personal life, in the home or the school or the community. And we just hear a lot of little stories throughout our travels, feedback after we get done doing a training somewhere. People talk about how they now are adopting some of these small strategies in their day-to-day, how they're trying to implement in the classroom. So there's just so much little bits of feedback that we hear, and it all really adds up, and it makes it worthwhile to continue to do the work for sure. So we're still in a really developmental phase, even though we've been doing the training and traveling around Native country now for about 5 years. There's just so much work to do, and it's really reflective of the complexity of the issue of helping wellness to become a part of people's normal everyday lives again, or having policy in communities or schools reflect a wellness-based lifestyle. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot more to continue on with that. And but there's just lots of just great little feedback that we hear, like Chelsey said, after the training or through our social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we see every piece of work that we do as interconnected to the last as well, and we don't operate in a vacuum. We learn something everywhere we go, and we are then able, in a respectful, when it's appropriate, we apply those teachings to our work as we continue on in our work, and we invite others to do the same with what we bring. And so I just love that there's not necessarily this sense of ownership over ancestral teachings. It's really kind of commonly understood that we're all helping each other out who are interested in wellness. And so just to reiterate, for every time maybe we have had an impact in somebody else's life, they have had an impact on ours in the way that we live our lives and in the way that we teach wellness. And in turn, that has a ripple effect because we carry that with us wherever we go, and hopefully spread that on. So we just like to, say thank you to everybody out there who might be listening, who has worked with us before, because I hope that everybody knows that they've made a big difference in Indigenous wellness globally.
Thank you for that. And then in keeping, just to continue the thought of integrating wellness into our lives every day. Many of us, we don't have the same routines that we did in the time before COVID, such as access to traditional spaces and gyms. And I know that's really, that hurts us in our connection to the land, because we're so connected to the land as Indigenous peoples. And I was wondering if you could share how have you adjusted your own routine in your wellness practices in shelter in place?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. A lot of people were last minute forced to really adjust and kind of thrown into trying to being able to maintain with new parameters. And for us, biggest thing that changed for us is that we travel a lot for our work, and once or twice a month. And so to be at home and not travel has been a good break for us, and it's been good for us to spend that time building ourselves once again and kind of getting ourselves filled up and ready to continue the work and try to adapt and work remotely and touch more people on that way, which is something that we were already trying to do before. We were trying to cut down on travel, and we were trying to be more eco-friendly and utilize platforms like Zoom to do trainings like this too. And so one of the things that also changed for us too is that we normally go to the Family Wellness Center on my res, just 20 minutes down the street, and that closed down, and it's still closed. And so the pandemic kind of started a little bit later in our community too, so they're keeping it closed. And so immediately we just started doing our physical training at home, which we kind of already did anyways, because a lot of times we don't have a whole lot of time, and we got 20 minutes, And so we always, over the years, have collected up different pieces of equipment in our home. Like we have some various sizes of kettlebells, steel maces, slam balls. We have some gymnastic rings, and a couple of other small pieces of equipment, our foam rollers and stuff like that, yoga mats, lacrosse ball. So we already started kind of collecting those things up over the years, because we, again, felt it was important to be able to train at home and exercise in the privacy of your own home when you don't have the time to get in the car, drive to the gym and get ready and then check out and drive home. That takes a lot of time extra. We spend a lot of time on our day doing that. And so it's good to be able to have some equipment at home, but if you don't have equipment, it's good to learn how to move your body. And that's the first thing that we should really learn what is our physical body capable of. What movements can we do in the lunging position, the squatting position? What movements can we do for core stability? What movements can we do for hip mobility, shoulder, pressing our body, pulling our body? And it's really important to learn all those foundational movement patterns as well, and how to strengthen your strength, but also your cardiovascular system. So we just started taking our little training at home, and we just started working out in our driveway and right here in our living room. And we keep our living room nice and open and minimal, because we like to be active in that. And that's part of our wellness model, 7 circles of wellness. One of those circles is a sacred space. Sacred is in your home or your school, your workspace. And part of having a sacred space is having a home that is going to be friendly to and accommodating to living a good, well, and active lifestyle. And so we have our little space here, and we'll do yoga right here. We'll dance around and have fun too with our daughter, and we stretch out right here. We'll bring kettlebells in here and do that. And so that's one of the ways that we have adjusted is to make use with the equipment we have and make use with our body weight. And the other thing that I've been able to do again was get back in a daily schedule to get back into meditation. And meditation is something that I learned in 2012. And we both have since we started really traveling a lot, both of our meditation had kind of slowed down. And so during this time, we've had a little bit more time to be able to devote to kind of just some silence, some quiet time, 10, 15, 20 minutes of just going inside the mind and just working from the inside out. And so I believe in a really diverse approach to keeping our healing and wellness going forward, our physical body exerting energy, but also being in silence and being able to build from inside out. And so I've had some good moments where I've been able to get up first thing in the morning and do a meditation, or middle of the afternoon, go into the office that we have in our little home here and get some silence and some quiet time. And we've always been cooking. We've always loved to cook. We've always loved to forage our food and to hunt and to grow and all that kind of stuff. And during this time, we've really been able to get into that and experiment a little bit more and just strengthen our relationship to food and get comfortable with that. Again, we believe that that's another component of the quarantine life that I think many people were starting to strengthen that, and which is a good thing. And so, and that was one thing that we're able to do as well. And, when you travel for the work that we do, a lot of times we have to sometimes compromise. There's ways to make healthy choices while traveling, but sometimes we end up compromising, especially if we're traveling in a very rural area, native country. And so we always try to do the best we can. So while we were at home, we were able to really have way more control of how we were eating. And, you feel it makes a difference in how we feel. It makes a difference in the way our body functions and operates. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about how we adjusted during the quarantine.
Yeah, I think, we're always advocates and always have been of kind of establishing this personal wellness sovereignty, empowering oneself to be less reliant on what the kind of American mainstream fitness industry would like you to think that you need. And one of those techniques that we've always advocated for is home workouts and office workouts and outdoor workouts.
Earth gym.
Meaning, we call it Earth Gym. So just different modalities that don't cost any money. And, of course, because we recognize the socioeconomic conditions in many of our communities, and there's a lot of people that don't have $100 a month to spend on a gym membership. And even if they did, don't have the gym available within a 50-mile radius for them to join. Of course, it's different across Indian country, but that is the case in many places. And so it's just interesting because now during COVID, that sort of personal wellness sovereignty has been particularly apparent. And as we've seen restaurants closing and grocery stores running out of a lot of products and gyms all closing, I think a lot of people have been a lot more self-reliant. And that's good because we should always be prepared for those things. And just to emphasize, I mean, we're not by any means against gyms. We love going to the gym. As Thosh mentioned, we go to our tribal wellness center, and if people have access and love to do that, we encourage it. But just for everybody to know that there are also many other ways, and nothing wrong with a home workout. So,
personal wellness sovereignty. I've never heard it framed that way. That's so powerful. Thank you for that. Just to reinsert here for our viewers and listeners, we are on Native Pulse with Chelsey Luger and Thosh Collins from Well for Culture. Before you begin your at-home demonstration with us, can you tell us briefly about what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to let Thosh take the lead on leading this movement practice. I'm going to sit with baby on the sidelines here. So if you want to go ahead, Thosh, and take it away.
Yeah, so what we'll be doing is first we're going to start off with the breath. As we know that the breath is really something that's important for all aspects of our living, and especially if we're going to start to move our body. It starts with our breath, right? It starts with oxygenating the brain. It starts with oxygenating our lungs, our muscles, all these kinds of things. And so there's different types of breathing, right? There's some breathing that we do to calm us, to relax us, to help us feel less anxious, to feel grounded. Then there's other breathing that we do that gets us prepared for physical movement. So we'll do some of that, and then we'll start really easy with like probably starting with the lower body, moving up to the upper body, and doing some very light movement to get to get our heart rate up and to get our blood going and to start to warm up our muscles, joints, ligaments, and create a little bit of mobility. And so we'll share a little bit of very light, easy, full body dynamic warm up, and then just do some simple lower body exercises to kind of show people this is something what you can do at home if you don't have an equipment to strengthen your body. So as I stated earlier, it starts with the breath, and what we're going to do is we're going to oxygenate our body, we're going to oxygenate our mind, all that, get it ready for movement. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some rapid breathing for 30 seconds. And the way we're going to breathe is you're going to breathe in your nose and your mouth at the same time. You're going to fill up your diaphragm. So you're going to get all that oxygen right here in your diaphragm, but it's also going to fill up your core as well. And so we're not just bringing the air up here, we're bringing the air down to our core. So we're doing a rapid breath in our nose and mouth, and then we're going to push it out of our mouth in a rapid way. So I'll demonstrate really quickly. So what we're going to do is going So if you'll notice, you might be able to see that my chest and my stomach is kind of coming out. So you're taking it in your nose and your mouth, okay? So we'll do that just for 30 seconds. And as you're doing that, try to really focus on that breath filling up your entire body. Try to use your mind and visualize the entire body being filled up with oxygen. And so you're really using your mind to focus. And I'm gonna set up a timer right here before we get going. Hold tight and get ready. We're gonna go for 30 seconds. And now breathing in. Ten more seconds. Time. All right. So if you got a little lightheaded, that's good. That means you got a lot of oxygen flowing. And so now your body is starting to get really filled up. And so, so now you're going to stand in place and just wiggle your hands, wiggle your feet in place, wiggle them around. You're going to start getting ready to move. You know, since the camera's above here, right here, well, let's just start with the upper body. We're starting real simple. So just follow me, and you're turning your head to the right. I'm starting with my neck. Breathing in, breathing out, and go the other direction. Start easy. If you're not used to moving very often, you can start really easy and gentle. Go back the other direction. Go the other direction. Good, good, good. Let's just start with the right shoulder. Move this way, left. We're just rolling it back. Try to stand upright too as we're going. Keep your breath going in your nose, out your mouth. Now we're going to switch directions. We're going to be going forward. Try to be nice and fluid with your shoulders. And as you're taking in a lot of the oxygen, try to really imagine that oxygen is going to the body, that area of your body that you're moving. And try to, with your mind, try to really connect with that area of your body. You're really trying to connect with the movement, and you're focusing on that movement. So there's going to be other thoughts that are going to try to go into your mind and make you think about other things. Just go ahead and gently push those thoughts out and focus on that movement of your body, because what we're doing today is we're getting familiar with our body again. Even if you do move a lot, we're learning new things about our body, and we're stepping out of the comfort zone to try new movement. So we're going to start with the shoulders. We're going to just kind of move down the opposite direction than what I said previously. So we're going to open up our chest now a little bit. And this one's a really simple one. So just watch here. I'm just opening up, swinging motion. I'm standing nice and upright too. Keeping the breath going. Notice how loose my arms are, how loose my hands are. I'm opening up your chest. See how I'm opening up my chest, opening up that heart. This is a real simple one I always start with. We're just starting real easy. See how my arms wrap around? Arms nice and loose. Now let's move them in this plane. Palms inward. Try to keep elbows as straight as we can. Now we're going to start moving into our core, our abdomen, and we're going to start adding in some twisting movements to that. So we're going to keep the swinging movement, but it's going to be like a pendulum. Just watch first. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this. Then I'm going to add my arms into it. So I'm swinging. And I'm looking all the way behind me when I turn. Twisting at the waist, your hips, your upper body, your thoracic spine. Try to twist that spine, wring out the organs. Good. So we're just trying to create a lot of mobility in our shoulder, trying to create a lot of mobility in our middle part of our back, our thoracic spine, and into our hips. So we're going to continue a little bit with the twisting motion. We're going to continue a little bit with the twisting, and what we're going to do is we're going to step our legs past shoulder width, like this right here. And you're going to get a slight bend in your knees. And all we're doing is we're just twisting and wrapping our arms around our body. So you're going to be doing that. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be starting from your foot. So the foot's going to pivot inward.
the foot will pivot inward. So the foot is going to pivot this way and the body follows. Then the other leg is going to pivot, twist at the hip, and wrap. And you're going to keep the breath going. So just follow like so. Notice how loose my arms are, and they're going to wrap all the way around my body. So watch. Notice that too, when I really twist that pivot on the ball of my foot, my knees bent, and I'm pivoting my hip, and everything follows. And so you got to really kind of take control of your footing. So it starts kind of from the feet all the way up. And so we're wringing out that spine a little bit, and you want to create some fluidity in your spine, and you're creating some mobility in your thoracic spine, that middle part of your back. And you're keeping the breath flowing. And again, what you're doing is you're taking in oxygen, and you're really just utilizing your mind to kind of send it to the different areas of our body. And so I always think of this too is that we have stress in different areas of our body, our muscle, we have that in our tendons or ligaments, and we're trying to get blood flow to go to that area, to take energy to that area. And so it strengthens it and it gets things kind of warmed up. So that's what that's for. These movements are utilized in a lot of different type of functional training, and mobility and strength training, and even Qigong uses some of these moves as well. So they're moves that are kind of universal and kind of universal. So now we're going to go to another one that's like a staple in my movement is opening up the hips. So we're making our way down. So we're going to open up the hips a little bit. For this one, just watch first. Watch. I'm standing nice and wide. I'm standing nice and wide right here. My feet are pointed out at that angle. My feet are pointed out at that angle. And what's going to happen is this left leg is going to bend. The right foot is going to point up towards the ceiling off the heel, and with the straight leg on the right, and your right ear is going to bend towards that knee with the left leg bending. And I'm just alternating back and forth, because I'm trying to create a dynamic stretch in the insides of my quads right here, but also in my hamstrings. And I'm trying to be as flat as possible. See how I'm trying to be flat? And I'm keeping the breath flowing as I'm doing that. So you want to feel that the back of your leg, your hamstring kind of opening up. And this is a good one for people that sit a lot because of their work, or they drive a car a lot because of their work. And when our hamstrings become tight, it pulls on the lower back too. So it's good that we keep our hamstrings nice and mobile. And this is a good one. So I'm just kind of doing this, and I'm breathing, because again, I'm still trying to send a lot of blood to different areas of my body that are moving, get things warmed up. I do this before I do stuff like squat, deadlift, incline hiking. And even if I'm just been sitting a lot, or on the front of the computer or driving, I do all this kind of stuff. I do it to varying degrees till I feel warmed up. And so that was like a quick one for our hips here. And let's just even get down. Let's just go put our knees together right here. And let's just warm up your knees and just make it small circles with your knees. Keep the breath going too. Then you're going to switch directions. Switch directions again if you need to. So I'm kind of doing really small circles, and I'm picking up the tempo. Good, good, good. And that's a good one for anyone that has problems with their knees. And a lot of times if we have problems with their knees, there's usually because of muscular imbalances on all the supporting stability muscles, or the tendons or ligaments are not strengthened from not doing any sort of resistance training or mobility training. Some people think that they got a knee problem. All we need to do is just move. We need to move, we need to stretch, we need to do some mobility. So now we're just bringing it in place, and try to bring your arms into it. Just marching in place and just bringing our knees up. This is a good one too, to get our heart rate up, to get us going. this is all movements that I like to do if I'm not feeling really motivated to work out. Like if I don't have a whole lot of energy, then I just do a lot of this kind of stuff. Then I start feeling warmed up. And when you start getting the blood going and your metabolism starts firing, then you start getting more motivated. You have more determination in it. So opposite arm, opposite leg, like you're running or walking. Yeah. Good. There we go. Nice. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stand just on the left leg now, because we're kind of moving down. We're kind of moving down the body, and we're going to plant your left foot into the ground. And what we're going to do is you're going to squeeze your glute, you're going to squeeze your quadricep, and you're going to kind of keep your core nice and stable. You're going to stand upright. And you're going to use your mind and imagine that your leg is a tree trunk and it's growing into Mother Earth. You're growing into her, and you're a part of her right there. So what we're going to do is do that, and then you're going to slowly bring up that right foot. You're going to bring up that right foot right there, so your knees up, and just do some circles with your foot. You're doing some circles. Try to draw a circle with your toe and try to keep that other leg nice and stable into the ground. You're a tree growing into Mother Earth. Other direction. Keep the breath going too. Good. Go ahead and switch. So we're just working on our stability. We're working on our grounding, using your mind, using the physical body. We're really bringing in the visualization and the other bigger, larger component of exercising, because we're connecting the physical movement with our outer world. So we're not just, oh, I'm working out because I want abs, or oh, I'm working out because I want a butt. You know, we're really using the mind and the spirit to kind of connect with a lot. And that's sort of our philosophy. So now let's go with that right leg. And you're going to plant, again, really firmly plant that right foot on top of the earth. Start to squeeze and activate that glute, that quadricep, stabilize your core, be nice and upright. And imagine, visualize that right leg is growing roots into our Mother Earth there. Visualize roots going in 4 directions. You're going to hold that there, and then you're going to bring up that left leg. That left leg right there. Once you feel nice and stable, you can start drawing your circle in the air right there. Keep your breath too flowing. You're visualizing you're a tree trunk growing in there. And if you need to hang on to a chair or the wall, that's totally fine as well. Go the other direction when you can. Good, go ahead and let that foot down. And it's really important too if a person is just beginning to try new movement, it's good to do those movements barefoot too. Because when we wear a shoe, a sneaker, what it does is it's a lot of times it squeezes our toes in like that. And if the sole, if the heel of the sole is really high, then it's harder for the body to really kind of stabilize, and we feel all unbalanced because you're higher up. So the nerves at the bottom of our feet are not really detecting the true surface in which you're standing upon. So it's good to try to be barefoot, to do these things barefoot, because what's happening too is that all those little stability muscles that are in your feet, your calves, your hips, your quad, your core, all that is reading information of the surface that you're standing upon, and it's starting to, your brain makes the adjustments, your central nervous system makes the adjustments. So this is good, especially too for all of our elders and older populations that have to really worry about things like falling. And it all starts with our balance and having stability within our feet, within our legs, and core. So these are good ones too for the older generations as well, is to get barefoot and to exercise barefoot right there. So I'm gonna do a couple of exercises for that as well. So this one we're gonna continue to stand, and all we're doing is you're going to use this left leg, you're gonna lift up the right leg, and you're gonna bend it inward like this, and you're just touching like that. You're just touching inward. Keep your breath going. This is a good one if you need to strengthen your stability in each leg and your balance. And as you're doing this, open up your toes. Open up your toes. Aloe doing it? Good job. Good job. Our daughter in the back is 2 years old doing it. Good. Now all we're doing simply is the same side, same hand, same leg. You're bending outwards. So see, I'm bending. Now I'm bending. you're trying to pivot that hip and bend it outwards so your leg comes out like that and you're touching. Good, good. Those are real simple, easy ones that people can do to get warmed up when they step out of bed. Again, especially for our elders and other people that have disabilities as well. So that will help strengthen all of their balance. And so,
as I mentioned before, it's important too to understand all the different movement patterns that we do as human beings. I think this is kind of one of the most basic and easiest structured ways to kind of formulate your own physical movement program. And this is why I bring this up all the time across all of our social media platforms, or my personal social media, or on a podcast, or when we do presentations such as this. We always tell people that there's 7 basic human movement patterns that we all do. We have a pulling motion, a pushing motion, we have a lunge, we bend at the hip, we have a squat, and we have a movement that rotates our upper body, and we have a gait, like a walk, a jog, sprint, running. So those are 7 right there that we do. And we'll just quickly demonstrate a couple of them before we come to a close right here. The body is all about movement patterns and joints. Movement patterns and joints. So we did most of the joints. We didn't really get to our ankles, but we did do some stuff for standing and stability. So we're going to just we'll do something. We'll go over the hip hinge movement pattern. That's a hip hinge is bending at the hips. And that's one that we do in everyday activities. We always do some sort of hip bending. We do this if we are training and lifting weights, such as a stiff leg deadlift or a kettlebell swing. We just do this movement pattern in a lot of different activities. And when we are objectively trying to strengthen our hip hinge pattern, what's happening is it's strengthening our hamstrings, all the posterior muscles like our glutes, our hamstrings, and our core stability. So I'm going to be real simple with this one and just follow along right here.
So we're going to start off standing nice and upright. You'll see right here, my ear is right above my clavicle, my shoulder is right above my hips right here. I'm standing nice and upright. And if your hips are tucking backwards, you want to try to tuck them forward, like so. And you want to imagine that there's a string pulling your top of your head upward toward the sky. So you're always maintaining that. Or you can imagine there's a stick from the back of your head all the way down to your tailbone. And imagine that there's a hinge right here at your hip. And all we're doing is we're going to start simple by doing this. You're bending at your hip. And as you're doing this, you want a slight bend in your knee. You want a slight bend in your knee, so you're going to start from the top, and you're going to bend your hip. Notice my head is continuing to stay in the same plane. I'm not looking up. I'm keeping my head like so. And there's the only thing bending right here is the hinge in my hip and the slight bend in my knees. Then I'm going to stand up again. So when we do that, you're pushing your hips back. So let's do it again. You push your hips back and you got a slight bend in your knees. Do it to where you feel some tightness, in your hamstring. So you're pushing your hips backwards, slight bend in your knees, keeping a neutral, straight spine if you can. And push your hips back to where you're feeling some tension in your hamstrings. Now squeeze your glutes and your hamstrings to stand up. Try that, and squeezing them to come up. Those are the muscles that help kind of pull you up right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more of tempo and power to it. Let's go. So your arms can just be like so. So let's start up here, reset up here again. And then we're going to go ahead and slowly bend down the hip hinge, bending forward, keeping your arms at your side or whatever. You're going to squeeze your glutes, squeeze your hams. You're going to breathe inwards, breathe in, and exhale, and squeeze those ham muscles to stand up. So watch right here. So I'm breathing in. So that's what we're doing. So if you squeeze in those glutes and those hamstrings, it helps you get up. Now you might, while you're doing this, you might kind of realize what other movement is involved. What other movement is involved in that movement pattern is jumping. When you jump to do something. When you're jumping up to grab a rebound or to jump something out of a tree, a the body goes down like this and it goes up. So
those are all the movements. Those are all the muscles, the movement patterns that are associated with jumping. And so jumping, again, is a big part of us, our human movement. So that's just a little bit right there with the hip hinge movement. And again, there's also the squat, there's also lunging, there's also rotating, pushing and pulling in a gait. And so that's just a simple, easy movement, a full body dynamic warm up. It's a real simple one. There's much more levels to it, and there's much more ways to go about it. So yeah, thanks for joining with that, and hopefully all of you viewers out there got something out of that, and hopefully that gave you a little bit more idea of how you can kind of warm up your body, and maybe it might open up your mind to some new movements.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that movement with us. Definitely inspired me to want to move around a little more today. And I especially appreciate the breath work that goes along with that, because that's, you know, almost like meditation, like that's equally as important as our physical health. Or they're not, you know, they're not separate concepts. So if you have any final thoughts or any calls to action before we kind of close out our conversation.
I just wanted to, both Chelsey and I, on behalf of Well for Culture, we just wanted to continue to encourage everyone out there to continue to explore all the different modalities of their health and wellness, and to remember that their journey is different than even a relative in the same household. That our wellness journey is so different, and that we must continue to explore different modalities that's going to help us on that journey. Exploring, strengthening our relationship to food, getting healthier sleep and finding out how we can improve that, continuing to try different modalities of movement, and looking at our home, looking at our school, our workspace as a sacred space. And how do we treat a sacred space? How do we act in a sacred space? Getting out on the land and maintaining our connection with our Mother Earth is a really important one. And then exploring modalities of ceremony that bring peace into our life. Meditation, our songs, you know, using our ceremonies, our smudges, all these different areas that help us to feel connected, to strengthen our spiritual connection to our body, you know, and maintaining our relations, our kinship, our clanship, our connections to the community, and connections to the animal nations, to the plant nations, and maintaining those relationships, because they play a really vital part of our feeling of connectedness. So I just wanted to encourage everybody out there in Native country to continue to explore those, and remember a lot of the solutions to the issues that we're dealing with today are within our ancestral practices. It's within our languages. It's within our ceremonies, our songs, our dances, our protocols to food, our clan systems, all that. It's all of those things are healing for us today. So our culture is inherently wellness based. And so I just want to encourage everyone to continue to have faith once again in ancestral knowledge, and to utilize what we're learning from Western knowledge systems and combine those and strengthen them, and change policy, change the way we're living in our homes, change the way we do things in our community. We as Native people have that power to make new cultural protocols, to evolve our culture. So we just want to encourage everyone to think about taking care of our health is also about increasing the longevity of our ancestral knowledge, because we need healthy elders to continue to go and prosper into the future, to be able to pass on this vital ancestral knowledge to the next generation. So this is why health is so important. I want to encourage everyone out there to continue on that journey. And I want to thank you all over there at 7 Generation Fund for your great work. Native Pulse, great work that you all are doing right there. And thanks for being a part of us. Our initiative, Well for Culture, can be found on Instagram at Well for Culture. Our website is wellforculture.com, and we can be contacted at info@wellforculture.com. And you can also check out our parent organization, the Native Wellness Institute, as well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your stories and having a conversation with us. It's been an honor. So for those listening, we thank you for tuning in to Native Pulse. To learn more, you can visit us at www.7genfund.org. Until next time, thank you for stopping by.